has raised several times about all of us as mediators. And his sort of challenge that we think about and try to represent as clearly as we can what sort of mediators we each are. And I think for me, the kind of continuous arc that I can see in my work is a mediation between something I love and my sense of an audience that doesn't share that love.
Or doesn't understand it.
Or doesn't understand it and might be open to sharing it. And you know, the thing I love is architecture, and especially experimental architecture. And even more than that, architecture is a form of cultural engagement. And you know, to be really frank, architecture as a form of critical cultural engagement. So that's really what I'm trying to sort of peddle in my work. And as a writer, I've tried to do that by kind of writing in a mode that hybridizes popular writing, criticism, journalism, theory, often trying to translate ideas that make a lot of sense in the academy and bring them to a more popular audience. In my work as an art gallerist or dealer, I function very much as a kind of interloper in a world that was curious about architecture but didn't really recognize it or quite know how to deal with it. And so I've seen my task really is that of a kind of translator or smuggler, really. But the idea that I want to try out today is more an idea of seduction. That as a curator especially, because now the kind of problem of my existence has been institutionalized. I direct a department of architecture design in a modern art museum where essentially it has no place. And the history of that exile really is something that I'm becoming very interested in. The story begins with Philip Johnson in 1932 and his identification of the Modern Art Museum as a site for the advocacy of architecture, a kind of exhibition as evangelism, really. But what he did was create a problem that I think all of us have inherited, and the problems are legion. I mean, what do you collect? What do you show? Who are you talking to? The actual objects aren't in galleries. I mean, we could go on and talk about the problem of exhibiting architecture. And even, you know, at a very practical level, the fact that the board of trustees of our museums are made up of people who collect paintings called free photography, but there aren't really architecture patrons. It's a pretty strange and interesting position to be in. So my approach has been to try to lure people towards architecture. And the way that I try to do that is to treat the gallery as architectural space in which people can encounter meaningful collective experience. And I really want to underscore collective because I think that represents a challenge to traditional and institutionalized notions of curating an audience. But for me, the gallery is very much experienced as a collective environment. And one in which I try to produce atmospheres, spaces that have very specific qualities, hopefully memorable spaces, so that the notion of space itself and the differentiation of space is taught. If I'm really doing my job well, I am able to use that kind of sentimental or affective education as a way to provoke an intellectual engagement, maybe even critical thought, maybe even, if I'm really doing my job well, a critical engagement with the museum itself.